Allen Lund Company wishes all the owner-operators out there a Happy New Year. OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
President Trump signed more than 24 executive orders on his first day in office, including reversing the Biden administration's electric vehicle mandate, and that move could have implications for the trucking industry. Tyson Fisher of Landline magazine has the details. Truckers are among the most generous people you'll meet, so it's no surprise that many of them want to help after disasters. If that involves hauling FEMA loads, there's a process to go through. Jim Jefferson of OOIDA's Compliance Department and Charles Sperry of the OOIDA Foundation stopped by to walk us through the process. Since 2018, Shell has been working toward showing truck drivers how they can make their rigs more fuel efficient. We'll learn more about the company's Starship from Ryan Muntree of Shell. And finally, trucking continues to climb out of a 2-year slump. That's according to Brent Hutto of Truckstop. He'll bring us the latest numbers in today's market update. And now, here's Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. On day one of President Trump's return to the Oval Office, he signed more than 24 executive orders addressing a variety of issues, among them a reversal of the Biden administration's electric vehicle mandate. Joining us to break down what that means is Tyson Fisher, associate editor of Landline magazine. Tyson, good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So this was a campaign promise of President Trump's, one of many. Didn't really waste any time on Monday. And in short, we're going to talk about this particular executive order that eliminates the EV mandate and essentially gives power to the free market here, right? That's the idea?
That is the idea. So one of the executive orders that he signed is called Unleashing American Energy. And it's a very, very broad executive order that goes after, again, energy, climate initiatives and stuff like that. And one of the, at the top of this order, he says that the U.S. now has a policy to, quote, eliminate the electric vehicle mandate. And so that was the idea here. So the question is, from here is, well, what does that mean? What does that entail? How is this going to shake out? And so we don't have all the answers to those questions, but what we can pretty much assume, from here is that this is probably going to attack the new stricter federal emission standards that were passed last year, both for passenger vehicles and then more than likely, heavy-duty trucks as well. Right. So that would be at the federal level, and so he sees this as this has been hawked as a electric vehicle mandate. It's not quite a mandate, but it could have the effect of kind of like forcing the adoption of electric vehicles. And as you pointed out, this executive order wants to move away from that, and then kind of just go back to the emission standards the way they were before 2024. That allows the manufacturers to produce the vehicles that are in demand as they see fit, and then let the consumers decide which vehicles that they want. The manufacturers will still be incentivized to produce electric vehicles because there is a market from that, but that shouldn't be they should be forced to do that. That's kind of the idea behind this. Yeah,
and as you kind of pointed out there, I think we have more questions than answers right now, but this executive order essentially, throws that by the wayside, I guess we could say. And as you said there, in our interests here, looking at the trucking industry and mandates within that, I guess there are still questions as to how this is going to kind of apply to them. But I know that there are states, California, the advanced clean truck states, that are looking at this and probably wondering where they stand as well. Yeah, so within that executive order, President Trump also mentions, the federal government to look into state actions that would, that have the same effect. I'm pretty sure he's probably directing that at California and the multiple waivers that it has received from the EPA. Just this past December, California received a waiver for their Advanced Clean Cars 2, which essentially is going to get rid of new gas-powered vehicles in that state.
But for the trucking industry, it'd be Advanced Clean Trucks. So Advanced Clean Trucks, they got that waiver, I believe, in 2023. And so the question is, will Trump revoke that waiver? So if you go back into his first term, that's exactly what he did with Advanced Clean Cars, the first version. He revoked that waiver. Eventually, that went through the court system. And by the time it got through the court system, Biden took over, put that waiver back in place. It was a moot point. We could see a return of pretty much that same saga going on. But this time with Advanced Clean Trucks, the question is, will he apply that? Will he revoke that waiver? We don't know. But what we do know is when it comes to California regulations, within the past year or so, some vehicle manufacturers entered into an agreement with the California Air Resources Board saying that no matter what happens to these regulations, whether a court or a legislation invalidates them, the manufacturers will continue to proceed as if they were in place. Basically, they're going to voluntarily adhere to the California rules. That is actually being challenged in court too. So So again, there's a lot of questions, but the bottom line is that there is going to be an effort from the federal government to roll back these what are considered by many to be an electric vehicle mandate.
Yeah, and whatever happens, I think it's pretty safe to say that they will go through the court process one way or the other. So this will be a drawn-out process as a result of that, but we'll keep an eye on it. One other thing real quick here, too, we should mention that President Trump has done, or I guess has happened since he took office. Infrastructure funding essentially paused, right, across the board while they kind of review everything, I think, right?
Yeah, so he's asking all the agencies just to review everything that's currently happening to see if it's in line with some of his objectives within the executive order, and that includes pausing, as you pointed out, the billions of dollars from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So from what I understand from troops on the ground down there is that there has been the Federal Highway Administration has resumed some, looking at. So there's a lot of states have, applied for grants and stuff like that. The review process of those applications have resumed, but we still don't know how it's going to look moving forward. So right now, effectively, there is a pause on that funding, but that is going to be challenged because a lot of people don't know whether or not the federal government can stop money that Congress has already approved for allocation.
Yeah, more questions and answers,
right.
But you provided some for us, as you always do, Tyson, and I know you'll keep covering this story. You can check out his work on landline.media. Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Now to some other items making news here. Diesel prices are spiking. The Energy Information Administration says a national average jumped more than 11 cents last week to $3.71 a gallon. Over the past month, the average has gone up by just about a quarter. Every region saw prices increase last week, led by a 13-cent spike in the Gulf Coast. And finally, the Shell Rotella Super Rigs Truck Beauty Contest is heading to Atlanta this year. Organizers say the three-day event will begin on May 29th at the Atlanta Motor Speedway, with more than $25,000 in cash and prizes awarded across more than 20 categories. That's Landline Now News for today. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Scott. The OOIDA Foundation is accepting applications for the OOIDA Mary Johnston Scholarship. The scholarship is available to any qualified child, grandchild, or legal dependent of an OOIDA member. You can find more information or apply at ooida.com. The deadline is February 1st. Starting Friday, Marty Ellis and OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker, will be at the Wheeler Ridge TA in Arvin, California. That's located at exit 219A on Interstate 5. Stop in, say hi to Marty, and join OOIDA for a $10 discount. Next, Scott Thompson discusses FEMA loads with Jim Jefferson of OOIDA's Compliance Department and Charles Sperry of the OOIDA Foundation. Ashley Blackford has a conversation about Shell's latest Starship truck with Ryan Muntree of Shell, and Brent Hutto of Truckstop discusses the latest on trucking's climb out of a 2-year slump. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
At Truckstop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truckstop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Lane Line now, welcome back. It is well known that truck drivers are among the most generous people you'll find out there, which is why when disasters strike, so many of them want to step up and help those in need. There are a lot of ways to do that, of course, including hauling loads for FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. If you want to do that, however, there is a process that you need to follow. And joining us now to answer any questions you might have about this issue are Jim Jefferson and Charles Sperry. Jim is the Regulatory and Compliance Supervisor for OOIDA's membership department, and Charles is a research analyst with the OOIDA Foundation. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Likewise. Good to see you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. We got a lot to cover here, and Jim, I want to start with you on this issue. We were talking earlier, when something like a hurricane hits, wildfires, name a disaster out there, when it happens, I know you get quite a few phone calls from people, from truck drivers who want to help. They want to carry loads in there, and it happens a lot, right?
Yeah, it does. All the time. As soon as a disaster hits, the first thing they want to do is they want to jump in and help. Hey, I'm ready to go. What do I need to do? So the process is you have to be registered. You can't wait for a disaster to strike and then think you're going to get a load. You've got to go through the process. There's a step-by-step process that does take time to get registered. And as long as you follow that process, then you're ready to go when a disaster happens. If you wait until the hurricane hits, you're not going to be qualified to get a load at that point.
And that's typically when you do get those phone calls, right, is right after Hurricane Helene or one of these disaster strikes.
Right.
You tell them, hey, that's great. However, you missed the boat on this one, at least for this year.
Right, absolutely. Typically, you're going to register sometime around February, and the year starts July 1st and runs from July 1st to June 30th of the next year. And you have to be registered with them and submit all your documentation through the full process before you can get a load. Now, there's other loads that are going to be posted out there. People will post those loads out on the load board. But the problem that you get into with that is if you're not the FEMA agent, if you're not getting it from FEMA, getting paid could be challenging.
And that's a problem.
Yeah.
You don't want to do this totally out of the goodness of your heart. Obviously, you want to be compensated for your time and your effort there. Charles, the OOIDA Foundation put out a great email recently, and I knew you worked on it there, essentially laying out the process that people need to go through if they want to haul FEMA loads. And the reason, as Jim kind of alluded to there, the reason this is going out now is we've got deadlines that people are going to need to meet here in the coming weeks, right?
Yes, that's correct. So one of the good dates to pay attention to is that February 3rd Industry Day that FEMA puts out. That's going to be where they take people and they kind of walk them through the whole process. There's a six-step process to go ahead and get yourself registered to get these loads, and that's February 3rd. You can sign up for it online, and it's quite easy to sign up for. But, yeah, they walk you through that process, which can be a little bit complicated and does, like Jim said, take time. It can take up to 9 weeks for a first-time applicant to go ahead and go through the whole process. Just because of wait times, you submit some paperwork, and then you wait 3 weeks, and then you submit some more paperwork, and you wait another couple weeks.
It is the government we're talking about here, so... Yeah.
True. Nothing happens fast.
And that's a good point, though, too, Charles, because there are a number of requirements that you do have to make sure that you're, checking all those boxes. What someone going into this completely blind, they've never done it before, what kinds of things are they going to be asked for during the process?
Well, like I said, it's a 6-step process. One of the first things that they want you to do is go through the program guidelines and certify that you've read through it all. And you think that it would just be a page or two. It's not. It's many pages, and
it is the government we're talking about. I'll repeat that again.
Yeah. Then you have to register with their system for award management. It's on sam.gov, and they have several things that you need to go through there. It is free. The registration is free. This whole process is free. So don't listen to anybody that says, "Oh, I'll help you through the process for a small fee." No, they're just trying to get money out of you.
And there's a lot of those companies out there that will do that. They're assistance is what we will help you get this for a fee. But the SAM registration, like he was talking about, it could take 15 days or longer just to get that first step processed. So you're at step 1 and you're already 2 weeks or more into the registration process.
Right.
Yeah. The third step here, well, depending on how you're counting the steps, according to their counting, that's the third step here, is you upload your documents to the FEMA STOS team, which that's their transportation services team. And you go ahead and you will get an accord form from your insurance provider basically testifying that you have a minimum of $300,000 of cargo insurance. And then there's several other documents that they'll require you. Again, as you're going through the process, they'll list off the different documents that you need.
Right.
An SCAC assignment letter issued by the NMFTA, pardon me, and some transportation service providers agreements.
So be expected to fill out a bunch of paperwork.
There's a bunch of paperwork and stuff like that you have to go through.
Now, Jim, are there certain people? I imagine this is not for everybody. Is there a particular type of carrier out there? Particular type of operation that this is maybe more fitted for when they're looking at doing this kind of thing?
I mean, it's open to anybody. So any carrier that's out there can sign up. But in some cases, I mean, it takes a lot of time. And you get a load going into a hurricane area, you may get down there and be stuck for a while.
Right.
So it depends on your operation and how much time you have available. Are you going to be compensated? Sure. But again, it's the government.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going to be compensated tomorrow for a load that you run today. It's going to take time for that to process as well. So, if you've got the time and you've got the extra trucks that you can commit to it, it's definitely a good revenue stream.
Yeah. And I mean, with anything in life, there are going to be pros and cons to it. And Charles, the foundation's email that went out, I thought had a really good kind of bullet point list of both of those things. And I'll open this up to both of you here, but someone out there listening, and again, you get these calls all the time, Jim, but someone listening right now and thinking, hey, I would like to be ready to go, in the summer if something happens, and I want to make myself available for that. Can we go over kind of the pros of being part of this, and why it would be beneficial for somebody to do it? Obviously, you're doing some good, you're helping people. That's a huge one, obviously, but beyond that, what kind of sticks out to you as being a pro here?
I mean, one of the things that sticks out to me from the compliance side is you've got a good revenue stream. It's money coming from the government. As long as you follow the registration process and you're a registered agent with the government, you're going to get paid. So it's definitely a good avenue for business, especially with the trucking industry being the way that it's been and rates for the loads have been down. It's definitely something that can assist with the financial side.
Yeah. And the rates for these kinds of loads do tend to be above average because, of course, you're dealing with inclement weather, dangerous situation. It could be there's a lot of potential complications, shall we say. So the payment is above average because of that. Some of the other things that we were talking about, there is a wide variety of loads available for all sorts of different operations. They've got truckload, they've got LTL stuff, they've got intermodal, they've got transportation for like temporary housing units, so like oversized stuff, and just all sorts of things. There's especially a lot of work, it seems, from what I've been able to research, a lot of work for flatbedders because especially when it comes to like reconstruction efforts, guess what? You need equipment, you need materials, you need supplies. So lots of that kind of work going into disaster areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter what it is that you haul, whatever your specialty is. I mean, there's going to be something available for you,
right? As
long as you're registered. That's the key, is getting registered,
right? And as you pointed out, it is a process. And if you do, I want to reiterate this because I think it's important. Because again, the phone calls that you get, if you want to do this, it could be in October, November. Calling after disaster hits isn't going to do you any good. You got to do the process now, kind of looking ahead throughout the course of the next year. And then the year after that, if you want to do it again, you got to go through the process again, right?
Yes, you have to register every year. So if you've registered, don't think that that's going to be it. You have to fill out this paperwork every year to stay compliant. If you don't fill out the paperwork, you get to the end of the registered year and they will drop you. You'll no longer be eligible. And by that point, it's too late to re-register. You'll then have to wait for the next year's open registration.
Nice thing. Oh, sorry.
So the registrations typically open somewhere in early February, and
Right.
you've only got about a month and a half of the registration process
Right.
to get registered. And it does specify a specific order. If you don't do everything in order, it will kick your application out. So if you haven't filed for the SAM registration first, when you get to the next part, it's going to kick it out because you don't have that registration. So it's important to follow the process that they have set up.
For sure.
Yeah. The other nice thing, though, if you are not a first-time registrant, you don't have to set up your accounts anymore. The process is going to be a bit smoother,
Sure.
and it will take less time and a bit less effort on your part. So once you get that first-time registration done,
Once you endure it,
yes,
all the blood, sweat, and tears from that, for sure.
it should be a little smoother after that.
We talk about the pros of this. I think it would be beneficial for people to kind of hear the other side of it, the downsides to maybe doing this. I know there are more stringent requirements, for compliance and things like that. But can you talk a little bit about something that you might say to somebody as not a warning per se, but just hey, keep this in mind if you're looking to do this?
Well, one of the things is going to be the amount of loads, the time that those loads are available. I mean, you got a limited window for this. I mean, the loads are going to be available once the hurricane or whatever the disaster is taken care of. That revenue stream and those loads are going to go away. So it's a limited opportunity. And it's very strict on how you apply to get that opportunity. So, I mean, it's strict, it's limited as part of the downside to the benefits that are out there.
Yeah.
If your operation isn't set up in a somewhat flexible manner, then that could be a real problem because, you never know when this is going to pop up. And if you have routes that you're just regularly running, like you've got a schedule, you got to kind of keep to it. This may not be for you because, this will completely disrupt your life for that period of time.
Yeah, and for that reason, it's probably, I would imagine, better if you're an established carrier, if you've been doing this for a while and you do have that routine and you kind of know what to expect and you've got a solid business model. I imagine that's probably true for the most part.
Yeah, if you've got a solid business model and probably if you've got a couple of trucks available, because if you've got steady clients that you're running, you don't want to just ditch your client that you're currently running to go and jump in here and make a little bit more money for a short period of time. And then when that's over, well, your client has found somebody else to take care of them. So you got to make sure that you have the flexibility in schedule to be able to be effective at this.
Yeah, for sure. And again, the process, if you're thinking about doing this, the process starts pretty much now, right? We've got February 3rd. You mentioned that deadline there. Charles, that's for the virtual industry day. That's going to kind of walk people through, I think, right, what's entailed there.
Yeah, so the virtual industry day will start people kind of get them started on the process. They've also got a February 10th, which is kind of going through the onboarding process specifically. The February 3rd date will kind of explain what the program is and get people started. February 10th will get them into the details of how they need to get registered. And then February 21st is the deadline to receive the registration forms.
So it's not too late if you're interested. It's not too late to do it now, but you kind of got to get those ducks in a row here pretty quickly because end of February or near the end of February is the deadline, right, to get everything in it.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So get those ducks in a row. If you've got questions, Jim, we'll give out your personal cell phone number here in a moment.
Absolutely.
Or you can call the OOID offices at 816-229-5791 and ask for compliance there. They'll help you out. We're going to have those links to these webinars on our website, landlinenow.com, and the OOID Foundation. Always putting out good stuff. Jim, Charles, we appreciate your time as always.
Thanks for having us.
That was Jim Jefferson of OOIDA and Charles Sperry of the OOIDA Foundation. Time now for a break, but hang tight. We've got more show to come right after this short commercial break.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Capital Reman, the leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, has partnered with OOIDA to offer exclusive member benefits. Visit CapitalReman.com today to support America's transportation industry and take advantage of your benefits.
Landline Now, welcome back. An initiative toward a lower carbon future has been in full swing since 2018. The Shell Starship is an aerodynamic, super fuel-efficient heavy-duty truck. Ryan Muntree is a project leader and research and development engineer for Shell's Global Solutions Technology Group. I recently spoke with him about how the Shell Starship initiative got started back in 2018.
The transport sector is basically fundamental to the global economy. It touches almost every part of our day-to-day lives. It supports economic growth. It's responsible for creating jobs and basically connecting people. Essentially, services such as like healthcare, education, logistics services. So it counts for around, I think, 35% of global energy usage, and on-road freight is about, I think, a third of that total. So it generates about 9% of carbon dioxide globally. That's a big number. And you have these carbon emission regulations that are basically on the horizon. Their absolute emissions from the road sector freight needs to come down by almost 60% by 2050. So if you look at the sector that we support and the scale or the size of decarbonization that's facing it, you start to get a feel for why we launched these types of large-scale demonstrations or impactful demonstrations, like we call them, in these sectors. Most of the sector's emissions are attributed to about, I think there's about 217 million vehicles in operation that supply this global supply chain. And most of that sector's emissions can be attributed to about, I think it's like 63 million or 65 million heavy-duty, medium-duty trucks. And they all have different power and weight and range utilization. So that represents about, I think it's 29% of global fleet and basically on-road freight CO2 emissions. And of all of those trucks, diesel is the primary energy mover. So I think 90% of the fuel used in those trucks is diesel. So basically, as Shell, as we're a global energy provider, and one of our specific mandates is, we have a climate ambition to become a net zero emission energy business by 2050 or sooner. In line with that, we support the transport industry and our customers developing products and solutions that enable greener pathways. So helping these hard-to-abate sectors achieve their own net zero emission targets.
How has the program evolved with each generation over the years?
Basically, it's evolved with the energy transition. You saw in the first two iterations of the truck. In 2018, we launched Starship 1.0, which was a diesel powertrain, primarily because at that point in time, that was the state of the technology that was being utilized in the market. And Starship's always basically been about leveraging and utilizing technologies that are relevant at the time and are most innovative, currently available, which is being basic. If you put an underline under that, it's what's available and what can be utilized now. So with Starship 1.0, which was in 2018, a lot of the technologies featured on the truck were centered around how do we make diesel as efficient as possible. Because at that point in time, there were around 2.5 million trucks in operation supporting logistics services around North America. And all of those were diesel. So we wanted to look at focusing our energy and efforts at making the best of those available utilities and trucks that are on the road now as efficient as possible. So that was 1.0 and 2.0. And then you start to see the sector start to evolve because technology started to progress, infrastructure started to improve. So things like technologies around battery electric vehicles, you're starting to see developments around natural gas. A lot of that basically enabled, the progression of that enabled us to start to look at solutions for Starship 3.0 that were focused purely around natural gas. So you see the program, the technologies, the OEMs, the service providers, the SMEs that were involved in helping us develop the truck. It's been a natural progression, but it's always been driven by how the technology and the sector itself has been progressing at the time. This is not focused on the next generation, because that would be programs like that I look at specifically at the time where I was looking at hydrogen or hydrogen fuel cell. This for where it's positioned and for each year, because we launched in 2018 was with Starship 1.0, and then in 2020 we launched 2.0, and then on the back of 2022 going to 2023 we launched 3.0, and at each we used the most relevant technology that we felt was pivotal to the sector at that point in time.
Now, with Starship 3.0 powered by a Cummins natural gas engine and using renewable natural gas, what are the environmental benefits compared to a traditional diesel-powered truck?
Natural gas engines have this added benefit of being able to run on renewable natural gas. And RNG is basically it's a biogas. It's a mixture of gases. So it's like 50 to 75% methane, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, sulfide, water, and there's like trace amounts of other gases in there. And this constitutes basically when organic matter, like we take food or animal waste, is broken down by microorganisms and we do this in the absence of oxygen. It's through a process called anaerobic digestion. We then generate this biogas. But at that stage, it still has a fair amount of low value constituents. So things like carbon dioxide, water, hydrogen sulfide, these all need to be removed. So when we do that, when we filter that out, we generate this renewable natural gas. And in that form, when it's processed and filtered, it can be injected directly into the natural gas grid and used as a fuel. So it's pretty fungible in that sense. And CARB, which is the California Air Resources Board, it classifies RNG sourced from dairy manure, which is what we've run Starship 3.0 on, as having a 250% reduction in life cycle greenhouse gases. So when you replace diesel with RNG, so if you took a diesel truck and you replaced it with an equivalent RNG truck running on RNG, you have this added benefit of a 250% reduction in life cycle greenhouse gases. And this all comes from the fact that the methane that's associated, it has a 28 times greater global warming potential. They call it a GWP than carbon dioxide. And what that basically means is the methane is actually more potent than carbon dioxide. And when it's left to its own devices, in the sense that agricultural waste is left to decompose and to expire and to, in the atmosphere without us even touching it, it's a more harmful effect. And repurposing it through this RNG process, through this anaerobic digestion, we're repurposing this waste as green energy or green fuel. So that's where the reduction comes from in the greenhouse gases. That's one benefit. The other is when you burn, whether you're burning natural gas or RNG, renewable natural gas in an engine, it has similar performance characteristics compared to a diesel. It's quieter though. It's much cleaner, and although it's still a fossil fuel, natural gas produces less CO2 emissions in terms of tailpipe emissions. So it requires a smaller after-treatment system, almost no nitrogen oxides, very little particulate matter or volcanic oxide compounds. Those are VOCs. So these low emission technologies, the engines coupled with the fuel, they offer many incentives, not just from a total cost of ownership perspective, but also in terms of, more significantly now in this specifically with where we are in this energy transition, just in terms of the reduced carbon footprint.
I'm curious, how does the Shell Starship 3.0 demonstrate the potential of integrating innovations like aerodynamics, lightweighting, and alternative fuels into the commercial trucking industry?
Yeah, so the truck is, it serves as a platform for showcasing the best of innovative technologies in the market at that point in time. So central to this truck's design is this concept of freight ton efficiency. It's about carrying the most amount of a payload using the least amount of energy. And to do that, we do it through a couple of enablers. There's 4 key design principles that we follow or we try to adhere to when we built the truck. These design principles like heavy on the payload, and that improves our freight carrying capacity and ultimately drives our freight ton efficiency up. There's things like the aerodynamic package, where we try to reduce. This is one of the more significant opposing forces acting on the truck that eats away at fuel economy and effectively reduces our freight ton efficiency. So we look at technologies and components on the truck that we can utilize to help drive down the improve drag reduction. There's things like rolling resistance is another significant opposing force on the truck. This basically refers to the friction that's created by the tire's contact with the road. Basically, when the tire's under extreme loads, and with our truck, we're going very heavy, that repeated flexing of the tire sidewalls, that creates heat. The heat creates friction. The friction is what basically slows down or eats away at our fuel economy because the engine has to work much harder to generate energy to overcome that friction. So we really look to partner with OEMs and suppliers that help us target these areas. So the technologies on the truck itself are dialed in to reducing these specific areas. So with the tires we've partnered with Bridgestone. On the engine itself, obviously Cummins is kind of the leader in terms of natural gas engines. And we utilize their expertise and their hardware to kind of improve on the efficiency of the truck all around. The last element of this is around driver behavior, which is a significant component. It involves not only creating a platform or truck that can be driven by not just a novice driver or an experienced driver, but helping them understand the technology that's available to them and how to leverage it when they're out on the road, giving them the ability to plan and optimize their routes. So there's a lot of key driver aids that are included on the truck that take away some of the guesswork that the drivers have to do when they're out there on the road.
How does Shell envision the future of sustainable freight transport?
These emission abatement targets that are on the horizon. So you've got, I think there's a 80% reduction in CO2 intensity by 2050, and it's less than 30 years to achieve that target. And the global fleet is already starting to transition to these zero emission technologies like renewable natural gas being one of them. I mentioned hydrogen fuel cell, hydrogen ICE, battery electric vehicles. The challenge with all of this is there's a time to materiality in terms of how quickly we develop it, test it, and de-risk it. Because it's not just the hardware, it has to be properly tested and de-risked. And then you have to have the infrastructure in place to support the customer when it's in the field. So all of that's going to take time. And what Shell is trying to do right now is create solutions that help bridge the gap in the interim. So what can we do right now? That's again what Starship's always been about, is what can we do in the immediate future right now to address the challenges we're having while these technologies come online. Natural gas only became a viable option for us once we knew not just the fuel and the fueling infrastructure was there, but the hardware itself was available, and there was a robust maintenance and fueling infrastructure in place to support the customer. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to roll out this demonstration. So that's a big part of it. And basically, to kind of, a long story short, is that we see a potential demonstration going forward, or any kind of development work we do in this space will always be tied to how the sector is evolving and what's the next step gap in that. How do we take it forward with a platform that's now already in place?
That was Ryan Muntry talking about the Shell Starship. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
Running on ultra-low sulfur diesel? Stay protected this winter with Howe's Diesel Treat and Diesel Lifeline. Steer clear of gel and ice with North America's #1 trusted brand. Find Howe's products nationwide at select retailers, auto parts stores, truck stops, and on Amazon.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. If you're hauling freight and running your own business, you need to keep track of some basic facts and figures that can determine whether you succeed or fail. And that includes finding the freight and how much money you can make hauling it. Today, Landline Now's Ashley Blackford will bring us some of that information and get some insight as to why things are happening with the folks from Truckstop.com. Here's Ashley now with a report.
Thanks, Mark, and hello to Brent Hutto with Truckstop. Brent, let's dive right in and talk about current market conditions. How are things looking?
Yeah, good point. You and I talked last week and the week before about how pivoting through the holidays, usually the marketplace kind of starts to pivot back to normal, return back to normal. Remember, for every owner-operator out there that's listening to this, you're in a supply and demand industry. Okay, supply and demand means it's a giant market. It's a giant marketplace, over $1 trillion. So it's big. And so you want to see things kind of pivoting or mirroring itself or doing what it normally does. And so the marketplace didn't do what it normally does. It actually stays high during the holidays, and it actually remained high. And even last week, we started pivoting back down a little bit, but not dramatically. I mean, it dropped. The pressure in the marketplace dropped about 10 points. Well, what does that mean? It means that the load posting volumes decreased, but only a tiny bit. The available freight for owner-operators in the spot market actually decreased about 3.1%. But, however, the freight available to owner-operators in the spot market is still 11% above the 5-year average. In other words, it's doing better than normal, which is great for owner-operators. There's a lot driving that. We'll talk about that in just one second. But rates are always the thing. That's how we get paid and how truckers get paid. And I'm all for truckers getting as much as they can. Remember, when I talk about rates, owner-operators and truckers and anybody with an operation out there, remember, these are just the posted rates. Please negotiate, always negotiate, always negotiate. But know your numbers. Know how to negotiate in it. But freight went down 3 cents week over week. So last week's freight was $2.30 a mile, which is above the normal, above average. But van actually had decreased 7 cents, it had gone up quite a bit, and it's still in the realm of where you would want it to start, about $2.13 a mile. And the flatbed, had stayed kind of normal. It went up 3 cents, and refrigerated, which had gone up like 35 cents over a 3-week period, came down 15 cents, but it's still a healthy $2.58 a mile. And fuel didn't change at all. You'll start to see fuel change over the next quarter or so with the new administration coming in and their policies towards it. But the thing that keeps me optimistic in this, Ashley, and the thing that I think every owner-operator, trucker in the marketplace that's for hire should be optimistic about is that the contract freight, which is the larger part of the freight in the marketplace, continues to get rejected at a higher rate than normal, which means more freight will come in the spot market, which means rates will continue to modulate. When I say modulate, that's kind of economic word. It means rates will continue to move upward because there's going to be more freight available to owner-operators to run their operations. And so that's really why I'm optimistic, is I keep seeing the signs, and I'm not the only one seeing the signs. There's many in the marketplace. I just saw a press release by the chief economist for the American Trucking Association, which measures all big fleets out there. They're optimistic about 2025 rates. And so I know that for owner-operators, it'll continue to be a good market, or will continue to pivot to be a good market for them.
What are some of the top regions and lanes from last week?
So last week, load availability was really increased quite a bit out of the West Coast. Well, you can imagine why, right? Well, there's all kinds of situations and changes going on in moving freight into and around Los Angeles, which continues to recover from all the deadly fires out there. And certainly there's opportunities in this marketplace to help that. So if you're a trucker, please help all you can out in the West Coast. So you've got really just the West Coast had the biggest increase because there was a slight decrease. But in general, the West Coast, Mountain Central, they're all pretty positive. Even the Northeast was super positive. It's up 30% year over year. So all areas except the Southeast, which is the industrial part, are up when it comes to the overall freight being moved. The Southeast just being down about 5%. but in general, they're positive for the available freight for owner-operators. And rates, just in general, they went down a few pennies, so you'll see negatives in those, but still, they're pretty healthy when it comes to the bottom line. But again, negotiate, know the marketplace you're in. And if you look at this thing, still, just from a rate change standpoint, I know we've said this and it's not like a broken record, just Texas just continues to be the hottest market around, and it's all because of all the goods coming in from south of the border and from Mexico. But so just, it pays to spend some time understanding the marketplaces. So if you're an owner-operator, take your time to understand the markets and the marketplaces of the geographic areas you like to run where you can maximize your rate.
What are some important industry points that owner-operators should be aware of?
Yeah, I'm going to come back to the outbound tender reject index, which is the contract freight that's kind of when there's more than 5% of the contract rate being rejected or not, they're not desiring to move it on the rate they agreed to move it at. Then when there's above 5% being rejected, then that comes in the spot market. Well, you look at that indicator, and then you look at what's been going on in the United States that has a remarkable effect over the entire country, and it's what you actually it's what you and I talked about in the beginning. It's this winter weather, and I don't mean like normal winter weather. I mean weather that is just an absolute frigid cold front that's covering like 60-70% of the United States, and it happened a week and a half ago. It's happening as we sit here today, and those things that because of its effect over an entire marketplace. Now, I know then when you look at that, it's had the winter weather that we're currently experiencing over the last 30 days has had more of an effect on transportation than the hurricanes did, because hurricanes and natural disasters, even the thing in LA, it's isolated in one area. And then obviously that's terrible in those areas, but the rest of the country kind of operates as normal. So what you'll see, and as you look at what's going on today, you should be able to get better rates in the market over the next week or 2 weeks just because of the weather. So I'd always pay attention to what's going on with the national weather fronts inside of freight, because you can kind of understand what maybe you'll get a better rate in different marketplaces. All right, and the last thing that some interested ones, yesterday was Martin Luther King Day in the United States, and I talk about this is because I love that America has great leaders and pioneers in industries. And you think about Martin Luther King, and I love this quote by him. I love this quote because he was just about our rights as people should never be hindered, our equality should never be hindered. And on his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, he said, "Make a career of humanity. Commit yourself to the noble struggle for equal rights. You will make a better person of yourself and a greater nation of your country and a finer world to live in." I just think about that. And as I thought about that quote, actually, I thought about two people. I thought about a guy named Mike Parkhurst, who today's truckers may not know who that is, but he started Overdrive magazine. It was the first sort of voice for the American truckers. In 1961, he started in September 1961, and so he gave a voice to truckers. And then you fast forward just a little over a decade later when Jim Johnston started the OOIDA. I'm sure with some other friends as well, but Jim was the leader of that. And I just think about what it did, and here's why I brought these two up. What it did to help owner-operators feel like they mattered. They were part of this industry. They were a valuable part of this industry, and give them a voice, and then give them an association to be a part of, and then represent them with advocacy. And I'm just thankful that OOIDA became an association in 1973, and I'm so thankful that it's carried on by Todd Spencer and how you guys continue to bring forth just defending the rights of the owner-operator, defending their rights in the marketplace. And so I just think about this world needs more great leaders and pioneers, and I love how truckers fall right into that when it comes to patriotism. So to me, that's one of the most unique things about transportation, about how these people who made a difference in our marketplace.
Wonderful. Brent, thank you so much.
Man, thank you guys for being who you are. Thanks for letting Truckstop be a part of it and be a partner to you. We appreciate all you do to help the industry, and we're here to be arm in arm with you to do the same thing.
That was Brent Hutto with Truckstop. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Ashley. That's our program for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
A son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
My kids.
Chrome. And I am
a professional truck driver.
And together, we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us.
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.